Welcome to the Soul and Soma Talk podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Thompson, where we talk everything mind, body, and soul, real talk, real stories, and tools to help you heal and grow. And if you're just curious, you want to find out more about how your mind and body works, or you're going through something right now, you're in a season where you might be repeating the same cycle over and over again. You may be thinking, I can't do this anymore, as in it might be a work situation, a friendship, a relationship, and you might have stumbled across my podcast, or someone might have sent it to you and said, hey, listen to this episode. So I want to welcome you here. It's so nice to have you here. And today we're going to be talking about something that truly changed my life and the lives of so many clients that I see. The moment that we start listening to ourselves, the moment when you finally start listening to yourself, and you know that inner voice that's been quietly whispering beneath all the noise, the one that says, hey, this doesn't feel right, or you need to slow down, or you're not meant for this, because we spend so much of our lives tuning into everyone else, what people think. They know better than us, what society expects, what should we do? And then we forget that there's actually a voice within us that actually knows the way. And today I want to help you reconnect with that voice. It's so interesting. Even the title of this episode, the moment you start listening to yourself. Now, it's not uncommon I experience this myself, and I know many of my clients do. When we start listening to that voice, it can be an internal critic. It can be just the chitter chatter of like an internal monologue of really saying not very nice things to ourselves. And it's interesting because when we start doing this kind of work and you go to therapy, I really found it hard. I knew that the voice was always there, but when my therapist said, cool, okay, Barbs, I want you to tell me how you talk to yourself, my mind would go blank every time. So if you're listening to this episode and, you're thinking, what does my inner critic say? What does we've all got one. What does my voice say? And if it goes quiet or it goes like blank, like minded, it's just trying to protect us. And over time, I've worked with many people that have had the same experience as me. And I think the cool thing is I could kind of give them a heads up, because when I did it, I was like, I'd even say to my therapist, oh my God, it's doing it again. And she's like, what? And I was like, my inner voice, or the voice inside my head, has just gone quiet again. and over time it does come and you do hear it. So I just kind of want to normalize that if that's you, that's okay too. So there was a time in my life where I ignored, well, let's be honest, many times in my life where I ignored every single sign that my body and my intuition were trying to give me. And one of my beliefs was, I'm nothing special, or I'm no one special, or what would I know? And I'd actually say that out loud, and I didn't realize I was saying it out loud. So a lot of our beliefs can really help us and not help us when it comes to being in tune with our body and our intuition. And there are so many things that I said yes to that I wanted to say no to. Can you relate to that? Whether it was a barbecue, whether it was a job offer, whether it was doing a collaboration with someone. Like, there's so many things in my private life and in my working life and relationships and all that stuff. Many times I've said yes to things when I absolutely wanted to say no. And so many situations where I had my mind and then my body and intuition were so separate. Like, almost all three of those were so separate for me. And I wasn't connecting any of them until I had my first, what I would call a panic attack when I was living in Australia. That was really the first time that, what is happening? My heart was racing and I was like, I don't like this. And that was probably, I would have been, how old was I? 38 when that happened. And I think that was the first time that my body was trying to show me what I was doing. I needed to change my path. I needed to do something different. And the signals kind of got louder and louder. And the thing is, we just keep showing up for everyone else I kept showing up for everyone else too. And I was running on empty, and I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, because I can push, like a lot of us, we can just push ourselves so far until we burn ourselves out. And I just was like, nah, I can't keep doing this anymore. And I've just had enough. And the truth was, in that moment, I was completely disconnected from myself. I want you to take a moment to think, even me just kind of talking about that now, do you feel, would you be like, yeah, I'm connected to myself? Or would you be like me, like I was completely disconnected from myself? And my body started to speak louder, and I felt more anxious and tired and restless. And then it just got to the point where I remember thinking one day, I don't even know who I am anymore. And that is really common for you mums out there, that when you become a mum, there's a whole identity shift. When you get married, there's a whole identity shift. I think every kind of 10 years, when you move into your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on, we have a slight identity shift. And it is really common for us, and you can have this more than once in your lifetime. You don't just have it once. I don't know who I am anymore. Maybe your kids are almost they're finished school and they're about to leave home. I don't know who I am anymore in this phase of my life. Maybe you've been in a marriage for 25 years. I don't know who I am anymore. Maybe you're recently separated or divorced from your partner. I don't know who I am anymore. And so I just want to say that's okay. It feels a bit scary, but it's actually a good thing. And the moment that was hard for me, and the moment I think that's hard for you too, I want you to know that it was only the beginning. But it's the moment that we finally stop and ask ourselves, what if I actually started listening to myself? And it's probably a really foreign concept, because how many times, like, we're brought up saying that's selfish and don't be rude and put others before yourself and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of goes against everything that I was taught. And I don't know, I can't speak for you guys, but what if we started listening to ourselves again? Because there would have been a time when we were little where we do listen to ourselves. I don't know, for me, I was very, what would I say as a little girl? Very outspoken, still very shy. It's interesting. I do have a shy side to myself, especially when I was a little girl, like really shy. But I was very, if someone was doing something wrong, I would call them out. And I would use my voice. And I actually had an intuitive side to me too at that age. I didn't know what any of that stuff was, obviously. But I have recalled, and I have learnt later on in life, that there are moments that I was actually calling out adult relationships. I called out something that was happening between my dad and someone else. And isn't it interesting, when you go through your own kind of healing journey, things that you've totally blocked out, you remember. So as a little girl, I was calling adults out at a very young age, and adults were telling me, shh, don't say that, you're not allowed to say that. Or I was calling them out when they're doing something wrong and they didn't like that. So they had to squash that. So I stopped listening to myself. I think I stopped listening to myself, which is probably kind of the normal age for a lot of us, would be around 7, 8, because all of a sudden we go from being a kid to being like, you're moving into that young adult world where your friends are the most important thing, and being accepted and being liked by everyone is the most important thing, and you kind of get into that shift. So we need to start thinking of, in this moment, if I say to you, what if I started listening to me again? I want you to repeat that. What if I started listening to me again? How does that sit with you? Because that single question changed everything for me. And I just see this all the time in my therapy clinic. Like, so many of my clients have spent years living by everyone else's expectations, and we're trying to be the perfect partner, the perfect friend, the perfect employee, the perfect daughter. And in all of that striving, we lose the connection to our own voice. Or like me, it kind of gets squashed out by other people. And they say things like, we can say things like, I don't even know what I want anymore. I feel like I'm living on autopilot. I don't know what's wrong, but something feels off. So those are kind of the things that what it sounds like to lose connection to your own voice. And often what's off is that we've stopped trusting ourselves and we're running life on the external approval. How much better does it feel when you get a compliment from someone else? And even better, someone else that you admire or you think is like powerful or amazing. Like that compliment lands and it makes our ego feel so good. But what if we gave that same compliment to ourselves? And the beginning of this whole talking to ourselves and taking care of ourselves, it doesn't land the same. And that's why we love running off external praise and external validation, because our ego is like, oh, this feels amazing. But when you start listening to yourself, it is a practice, and it's like almost like a snowball that goes down a hill or a mountain, like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you start noticing what feels good and what drains you and what excites you, that's when everything begins to change. And then you stop asking yourself, what do they want from me? And I want you to start asking yourself, what do I need? So let's start listening to ourselves. So you might say, how do we actually begin to tune back into ourselves? Good question. So I've got a couple of ways here that I want to share with you today that if you're new to this, how you can start reconnecting with your inner voice. It's not scary, and I do want to say that all of us have an inner voice. Every single person. Doesn't mean like we're schizo or there's something wrong with us or we're talking to ourselves. Very healthy, it's very normal, and we all have an inner voice. Okay, so how we start listening to our inner voice? Let's go. So if you've got a pen and paper, I would write these down or come back to it if you're driving or you're training or you're going for a walk. So the first thing is journal without filters. So I want you to, and it has to be writing down on paper, not on a laptop, not on your phone. I want you to write down. I want you to write freely with no structure, no judgment. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And what do I need? What am I feeling right now? What do I need? And your truth often shows up in the words that come out of you, but sometimes we're too scared to write it. We're like, oh, and then because you'll notice a story, you will want to write something. What am I feeling right now? What, and especially the second part, what do I need? When you're going to answer, what do I need? Listen to the beliefs that come up. Oh God, that's selfish. Oh, well, that's never happened in my family, so no one can have that. Oh, my dreams are too big. Or who am I to want that? Like it'll be followed quite closely by a belief. But that's all I want you to do. So that's the first one, journal without filters. The second one, notice what your body is saying. Your body's always communicating with you, whether it's tension, fatigue, tightness, gut feelings. So you need to ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me now? Because sometimes your body knows you're overwhelmed long before our mind clocks it or wants to admit it. So the body will notice it first before your mind does. Another thing that you can do, you don't have to do all of these, just pick one. Try sitting with your emotions instead of fixing them. Yeah, I know. It doesn't sound very good, does it? A lot of people freak out when I ask them to do this. Totally normal. I used to do the same thing because we're so quick to distract or scroll or push away feelings or be in the busy mode. It's because you're running away from your emotions. You don't want to sit with things. And I think a lot of people are worried, and this is totally fair too, that if you stop and you feel things, you're worried that the feelings are going to be so big, they're going to wash over you and swallow you, and you're scared that you won't be able to go back to that feeling of pushing everything down. And the truth is, what I know to be true, but what I see as a therapist is, yes, the initial wave comes and it's like, this is horrible, this is yuck, I don't want to do this. And in that pinnacle moment, it does feel like it's never going to end, and it is really, really big. But if you sit with it for a bit longer, it's like a wave. That's why we call it a wave. I don't use many therapy terms when I work, but one of them is we talk a lot about emotions as waves, because it's true in the tide. Wave comes up, comes over us and then washes back out. So we're just so quick to block and distract and scroll. But I want you to just sit there quietly and say to yourself, hey, I see you, to your emotions. Like, have some fun with it. It doesn't have to be sterile. Therapy can be fun. Doing this stuff, finding your inner voice can be fun. And you'll often be like, you'll feel we're so more attuned to ourselves, and we're so clever, we never give ourselves time or space to actually do this stuff. So don't be surprised if things come up, and don't be surprised if nothing comes up too. Like, yeah, it's so different for everyone, but I hope those 3 things, especially the journaling, I think out of all of them, the journaling is something a bit more tactile and a bit more that people understand how journaling works. And I find a lot of breakthroughs with my clients that are journaling, especially getting in touch with their inner voice. And so when we begin to say yes to what feels right and no to what doesn't, it is like, it becomes so easy when it's something that's so foreign to you. When you do and practice over, especially if it's summer, like it's coming into summer here in Australia right now. Like, if you're coming into the season where there's Christmas parties and work dues and family events, practice. If you don't want to go, practice saying no. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. And you begin to say yes to what feels right. It's literally a game changer. And then from that, you start making choices that support you. You're not people pleasing. Then the next layer of that is you begin to trust your gut and your heart. And then you connect with yourself that, oh my God, my inner voice has always been there. And I've just been waiting for you to listen to it. So this week, what I want you to do is I want you to pause, even just for a moment, and ask yourself, what do I need right now? Everything gets overwhelmed. What do I need right now? Try it. What do I need right now? And you might be surprised at how clearly you answer this. Okay, so I just thought of something I want to share with you guys. I was thinking, when was a moment that I started listening to myself? And I've said earlier in this episode that it was about age 7 that I stopped listening to myself. But as I was tying up this podcast and producing it, I just sat here and thought, oh my gosh, there was a moment. I want to share this with you guys. So I'm just doing a little added extra recording onto the end here. Okay, so picture this. I was 10 years old. My brother was 7. And Mum, Dad, and the 2 of us, we went on a holiday to Melbourne. So we're living in Auckland, New Zealand. We decided to go on a family holiday to Melbourne. I think it was for about a week or something. And it was halfway through the holiday, and I remember being in a big department store. And there were tram lines out the front. So I don't know in inner city Melbourne if it was David Jones or Myer. I think it was David Jones. So I was in there with Dad. Mum was at the hotel, and my brother and I and Dad were, I don't know, shopping, looking around. And my brother and I used to fight a lot. And so we were fighting about goodness knows what. And he was pushing me, I was pushing him, and I was yelling at him, and whatever we were fighting about, I don't think Dad was paying any attention. And I remember crossing my arms like, you're not listening to me, Dad. And then I remember going, well, stuff this, I will show you. And so I crossed my arms, turned around, and walked in a different direction. And I was like, he's not getting my attention. I need to tell him that my brother's being a pain in the ass, and I need my dad to hear me. So I crossed my arms, and I remember turning my back and walking the other direction, the David Jones store. And I was walking. And I went, I'm really angry. I'm going to keep walking. So I was walking. And then I turned around, and I was like, uh-oh. I started walking. I was like, okay, stay cool, Barbara, stay calm. Oh no, and I had tears in my eyes, and I was like, I can't see my dad. I can't see my brother. And I was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, be cool. I remember just saying, be cool. I was 10. Be cool, Barbs, be cool. And I was going up the escalator, looked around, down the escalator, looked around. I remember there's like security guards or someone standing. I remember them standing by the escalators, or maybe by a door. But I remember I did walk past a couple of security guards. And I didn't think once to ask for help. I didn't think once to ask. I was like, no, I'll find them. I'll be okay. Be cool, Barbara. Look grown up. I remember walking with my head up, my shoulders back. I was shit scared. And so I was walking in the department store, and I think I stayed in there for a while. And then I went out of the department store. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was in there for a while. Walked out with all the tram lines and stuff. Then I was walking up and down, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I just look back now and think, Barb, just go tell an adult. Go ask for help. Go into, I don't know why I didn't go to one of the shop attendants in David Jones and say, I'm lost. And then they could have just said, mate, that's what most normal kids do, right? Like, you're lost, you go to the makeup counter or, I don't know, and just say, hey, I've lost my dad. But no, not me. I don't know. It didn't even, honestly, it didn't even cross my mind. So here I was walking the streets of inner city Melbourne, 10 years old. So this would have been 19, for all you youngies out there, probably way before you were born, 1990. So I was in Melbourne, 1990, walking around, and then I just had this thought. I was like, maybe I'll just walk back to the car. Now, what my dad loved to do when we travelled overseas quite a bit, is whenever we'd get a rental car, he'd park it and we'd walk for hours. So, most people, you go somewhere, go to a shop, you park in the shopping thing and you go there. No, he would park somewhere at a park or something, and then we would walk for hours and then go back to the car. So I remember standing in Melbourne in the city going, okay, well, I'll walk back to the car. And I must have had this trust of inner knowing that I was going to be okay. I wasn't scared. I was upset that I couldn't find my dad, but I wasn't scared. I was just okay, I need to find a plan. I'll walk back to the car. So I remember, this was such a long time ago, but I would say I would have had to walk, let's say at least half an hour, 45 minutes back to the car. And all I remember was I had to walk through Chinatown. I remember walking through Chinatown by myself, and the whole time I was walking, I was like, just find the car, just find the car, just find the car. And at this stage, I could hear sirens. I could hear a heli. I could hear some, I could just hear stuff happening. But I was just backing myself. I was listening to my voice. It's all right, Barbara, you're going to be okay. Find the car. Just find the car and everything will be okay. I don't even know now if even that was my voice. I don't even know. Anyway, so I walked for ages, guys. Walked through Chinatown. And I remember the car at the time was would have been a white Toyota Camry. They were dime a dozen then. And it was just so, how did I know at 10 years old? Yes, I was born in a family that was car enthusiasts, and even from the age of 10, any car could drive past. My brother and I would play games. That's a Honda, that's a Mitsubishi, that's a Mercedes, I could even just look at it from a car going far, speeding past us. I knew makes and models of cars at a really young age. So I knew what model and make I was looking for in the car, but there were so many of them. And then I remember walking up, it was by a park. So I was right, there was a park, there was a big tree, and there was a white Toyota Camry parked under the tree. And I put my back on it. I remember taking a big breath, deep breath, and then just slid my back down and just sat with my back against the car under the tree. How did this 10-year-old girl know that this was the Toyota Camry? How did I know? And I think I kind of was I think this is the car. So while this was all happening, my dad went to the police and said that I was missing. And I didn't realize at that time there was a big, so I had blonde hair, blue eyes, and there was a big ring of criminals at that time in Melbourne that were doing the trafficking of children, young children. And so when Dad went to the police and obviously said I was from New Zealand and I'm missing, it was a big deal. All the police were looking for me, and the helicopter was actually looking for me. I heard the helicopter and I hid under the tree. It's funny what you do. It's not funny, but it's funny what you do as a little kid, right? Like I'd heard the helicopter and I was like, oh, it's a helicopter. I'll just hide under the tree more. Didn't realise they were looking for me. And the police sirens and everything. I was like, oh, it's a bit scary. Didn't know they were looking for me. Now, if you ask me how much time went by, I mean, when you're 10, I'm sure 5 minutes feels like hours. So let's say 3/4 of an hour to get back to the car. Could have been an hour. I just don't know. And then I was sitting at the car for ages. Good couple of hours, I reckon. And then I see my dad and my brother walking up to the car. And I was just like so relieved. I was like, Dad, Jason, hi. Whoa, my dad was not happy. I got the biggest telling. I love my dad. He's a good dad, but isn't it interesting in that moment, like he was so angry with me and I got fair enough, I got a massive telling off. Not one moment did my parents say, you're a smart girl, you clever girl, or I'm glad you're safe. Didn't even hug me, nothing. I'm not saying this for you guys to feel sorry for me. I'm just telling you what happened. So isn't it interesting that little Barbara found the car, and I remember seeing my dad, and I was like so excited to see my dad, and I kind of wanted him to be proud of me because I was like, Dad, like I'm here, I'm in the car. And I didn't know the police were looking for me, and he just like ripped me a new one. Fair. My brother like was smirking, like, shame, you're in so much trouble, which made me, because he was the reason why I walked away in the first place. So I was like, oh, if you've got a younger brother, you totally know what that's like, by the way. And then so we get back to the hotel, and I remember then that created a big argument with my mum and dad, and then mum and dad were going to get divorced because apparently I was a little shit. So they had a big fight. I heard that. Then I heard him, I remember my 10-year-old brain, it wasn't like constable someone. I remember him going, yes, senior sergeant, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, that person sounds very important. And he's like, you can call off the helicopters. And my dad was like, you can call off the thing. I'm so, so sorry, sir. I think my dad calling this dude sir. I was like, oh God. Like I remember him saying that. But yeah. So that's a little snippet of my life. And isn't it interesting that forget that moment in my life happened, and what I wanted to bring, this is the reason why I'm sharing this with you, is I wanted to bring back to, isn't it interesting when we're little kids, we listen to our inner voice and the people around us don't praise us for it. I understand why my dad was angry. When I was 10, I didn't. Now, oh my God, I would have been, if that was my daughter, oh my God, I would have been, and sometimes anger is a presenting emotion. Dad was probably scared and worried and upset. And for my dad, a lot of that would have been embarrassment that he had to ring the police and say that I was sitting by the car. And I think the scale of the police at that time that were looking for me was big. It wasn't, when I've spoken to my mum about it in recent years, it wasn't just, oh, we'll send a unit out. It was like, this girl's missing. It was big. So that was the embarrassment, I think, too. Yeah, so I share that part of that story with you because I'm very proud of that little girl, and also how smart are we? How intuitive are we? As little kids, how much we listen to ourselves, and then when we do, the people around us don't see it for that, and most of the time it gets taken away from us. What a powerful story, and thank God I was okay, and it was just listening to my inner voice. Believe me, I think my inner voice and me trying to find that car would have been having a massive conversation, because you just think, how did that little girl know? How did I know how to get back to that car? Guys, that was insane. That was unheard of. So I'm proud of that little girl. I'm so proud of her for finding that car and having the balls. I'm definitely stubborn, and I'm definitely strong. and no one was fucking with me that day. But I tell you what, I mean, that my life could look very different right now. Who knows what would have happened if. But all I remember was my inner voice saying, "Be cool, be cool." I remember, like, be an adult, hold your head high, put your shoulders back. No one will notice that you're walking by yourself. I don't know what this 10-year-old little girl would have looked like walking through Melbourne by herself. And if you know me, you know that my face says everything. So I probably in my head, I was like, I'm so cool. And then my face would have been so petrified. So I wanted to add this into the episode because, like I said, as I was putting this episode together, I was like, when did I stop listening to my inner? You know what? That would have been it. It wasn't like 7 years old, like I said, because that's my clinical thought. It was actually, would have been after that Melbourne trip. And do you blame me? There's no way I would have listened to my inner voice after that, because look what happened. Yeah, big family breakdown. There you go. So that's my story about when I went missing in Melbourne. So yeah, have a think about when you had an inner voice and when you stopped listening to it. I'd be quite curious to know. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love you to share it or let me know your thoughts. You can reach me on Instagram at Soul and Soma Talk. Also with my private practice. So if you're listening to my podcast and you're like, I would love to connect with my inner voice, how do I actually do it? I can walk you through that, and you can have online or in-studio sessions with me. So come over to my private practice Instagram, which is self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathompson.com.au. And I've got plenty of tools to help you. But one of the things that I work really well with clients on is connecting with their inner voice. Then this is all connected to you taking your power back and literally living your life. Life is meant for us to enjoy it. It's not meant to be hard. Okay, so I didn't know how good life could get. And it's so good right now, and I just know I'm scraping the surface. But the other thing is, when you listen to your inner voice, when you start coming from a place of this is what I want, this is what I need, you're not being a bitch or an asshole about it. You're actually just speaking your inner truth and you're being authentic. Once you're authentic with yourself, life gets simpler, it gets clearer. The people that are around you are on the same page as you. It works at a slower pace. You're not overwhelmed. You're not stressed. You're not anxious. Yes, sometimes you go through like busy days or stressful days, but what happens is we need those days to accept the calm days. But it's not like before I learned how to reconnect with my inner voice. I was so hard on myself. I hated myself. I was so disconnected from my body. That I was just all about the external. Like for me, it was very, just going to be honest here, it was very gym orientated. Like if I can look like, I know what I was obtaining with my physical appearance and my health and fitness. And this is the thing I want you guys to know. I was so focused on the way I looked, and which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was so focused on the way I looked and so focused on my fitness goals that everything else fell away, but also I was so obsessed with it that I thought that would give me the validation, that would give me everything. And for me, I didn't, because I was so disconnected from my mind and my body and my intuition and my soul, that when I reached the pinnacle or reached like what Barbara is always dreaming of, I didn't even clock it. I didn't even know I looked like that. I didn't even know I felt like that. I didn't even know when I would leg press this is ridiculous. When I would leg press, literally, my trainer would put all the plates on the leg press, then he'd put extra on the top, then he would sit on it, and he's a big guy, and I would do it. Not one moment did I clock, wow, Barbara, you're a strong motherfucker. I was like, I can do better. I can be better. And even when one of my best friends, Sarah, and I were training for competition, I said this to someone the other day and it just blew their mind. So, when you go to an athletic field and they have the track. So every Saturday morning we would get up and lunge the track about 4 times. Piece of piss. That's what I mean. When we're so disconnected from ourselves, and this is just my own personal experience, like we're all different, but we're kind of all run the same way. I'm getting into a territory where I'm probably talking too much Barbara talk here, but stay with me. So what I'm trying to say is, when you connect with yourself and you connect with your voice, life becomes, it's like euphoric. Like it's like you have your own back. People come and go in your life. You don't need anything off anyone. You don't need validation. You don't need acceptance. You are whole. And I know that sounds really therapy woo-woo, isn't it? And sometimes it's hard for me to explain because it's that good. And I just want you to have a taste of this. I want everyone to have a taste of what it feels like to have your own back, to listen to yourself, to know what you've always had is all that you need. You don't need anyone else. And you can tell sometimes I do these podcast episodes off the cuff because as I'm trying to explain this to you in real time, my mind's going blank. So it's doing the thing, but that's okay. I think the most important thing I want you to know is, as little kids, we have this connection with ourselves. That's why we dream. That's why okay, here's another way for me to explain it. So, when most of us meet a baby or like a kitten or a puppy or anything that's in its infant stage, we go, oh my God, it's so cute. And we're so drawn to that. And it's because it's pure. It's a pure soul. There's purity. That's why we all love little baby things. And then after the purity, then we kind of take on other people's beliefs. We take on society stuff. And then we lose that side of us. So what happens is when you do therapy or when you start doing anything that you're reading or listening to that you're like, I want to be more true to myself. I've lost myself. I want to find who I am. I want to connect with myself. When you do that, you connect. Okay, see, this is the best way for me to explaining it. You go back to that pure soul. You go back to what you were as a little baby or as a little kid, of knowing who you are, more in line with, the essence of who you are. I don't even know if I'm doing that justice. And you're probably like, oh my God, Barbara, I hope that there's something in here that I've shared that kind of makes sense. I'm just so real and raw on here. I'm just telling you, just sharing with you like how it is. Anyway, that was a good closer for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, seriously, DM me. I answer all my DMs. Come over and say hello. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear that, Barbs, I listened to this episode and I got this from it, or I didn't realize this, or share your stories with me. Like, please connect with me. This is what this is about. And I hope this has helped you start thinking about reconnecting with yourself or helping to connect with your inner voice. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. See you guys.